first thing is to do with the interviews. What does interview really mean here? So interview is a one-on-one discussion, as we discussed yesterday. It's a one-on-one with the concerned stakeholder, typically for the senior management and the people in the executive roles. And you try and engage with them, have a kind of a relationship, the rapport, as what we say initially. And then because of that, they're open to share more confidential information. I gave you an example of that yesterday while we were talking about it. And then it helps build the rapport quickly. So it's a really fantastic tool, because you're just you and the other person, the interviewee, you're just the two of you are in the room, and then obviously you would initially lay some roadmap in terms of what you're planning to do. The agenda is well set, and then within that 55 minutes, 1 hour session, you would try and understand what is it that they have got in their mind, their expectations, the roles, the feedback, the challenges and the vision, all of that. So it's a very powerful tool, the interviews. In fact, I do a lot of interviews with the stakeholders, and then I did some of them with the end users as well, user interviews, as what we call user studies. Very powerful again. And then workshops are basically, you would try and engage more people into at one point of time. Typically, I would suggest this is for the middle management and the lower management kind of people is what you would try and engage in a workshop. The group formed from diverse, multifunctional. That's the whole idea of a workshop, because you can then get different people into the room from different backgrounds, different roles, technology, business, operations, marketing, infrastructure. So all of these different perspectives, different backgrounds, you try and get into the room, and you either engage in some kind of brainstorming, some ideas, some decisions that need to be made. That's the whole idea of actually a workshop. It will help you quickly achieve the consensus, or help you make decisions really quickly, instead of actually sending hundreds of emails or tens of calls. And the whole idea is that it would really help you to get the buy-in and help you take decisions quickly in a cost-effective manner, and pretty time also in a time-sensitive manner. It's very, very useful, very powerful again. But there are some problems with the workshops in the sense it need to be moderated really efficiently. You need to have a good moderator, otherwise it will be taken over by the people who have got the loudest mouth, or who have got the highest power. They would try and control the whole group of people around. So there is that group behavior, group dynamics would take a beating, and then, or people would form cliques, as what we say. They would form groups and bands within their own thing. 3-4 people from the same team or similar background would try and have a say, and then they're trying to act like they've got like two political parties in the same room.
When you're talking about gigs.
The workshops, yeah. So you need to really have a moderator who needs to control all of these, make sure if things are going out of the hand, they need to be brought back into the things. Yeah, we need to really have a good moderator to bring back the discussions into the room again, and then make sure that they keep the time, to the agenda, to the points, and make sure the decisions are taken, and then we have got some outcomes that have got a good that have got a good sense of efficiency and effectiveness coming out from the workshops. Otherwise, it tends to be a little dragging. So we need to keep a tab on this. Observations. I was talking to you yesterday about the observations. Like, for example, if some surgeons were performing a surgery, that could be observed, or if there is something called as on the job or following in the job. So basically, if a senior person is performing a role or a task, then the junior or the kind of assistant or the intern would actually follow it through, and then they just follow them everywhere, wherever they go, however they do the work. They just keep an eye on them, observe how they perform the task. So that's a way of learning, a vicarious learning, as what we say. It's good. It's very helpful in giving context-sensitive, context-rich information. Exactly. So as we get really good insights about the environment of usage, how things get used, is it noisy, is it hot out there, is it really, how is it calm, are there a lot of people around, what is the pressure about, do we have to do really work in the pressure situation, or is it relatively calm? All of those things would actually be can be observed and learned, and it really helps to identify the problems, the breakdowns and workarounds, all of them in a pretty straightforward way, because you can actually see, for example, in a call center application, this is what happened when they're trying to redesign the call center CRM and call management application. They actually went and saw what the call center guy, the BPO guys are doing on and off. So they found that they've got this sticky notes and the pin up boards in front of them, and they were actually they saw a lot of these staff actually have the post-it notes, and they use that the pin up board to pin the notes and the points and follow up notes from the calls. And then they found they also not just using that space, but also they've seen the desktop or the monitor also being having a lot of post-its on them saying, call this guy, this is the customer, needs to be followed up, or this customer said they had called 4 times, no response, so in the next shift you need to call up or follow it up. The reason why they were doing that was because of the shift operation, because they need to, it's like, as you know, the BPOs operate in shifts, and after one shift the next person would come in, they try and take this call from the customer, so they don't have to ask the same set of questions and know the background. So this happened quite a few times, and they had actually seen people how they're using this whole thing. Then they found that, okay, this is what is happening. They understood the real reason why these teams or the people are using these kind of notes and post-its and things like that extensively. Then they found that there should be a continuity in the way that you address or you perform the workflow. Then they came out with this task of actually having a note, having a place where you can actually enter free note in terms of a call. If somebody calls you, then the call center employee should be able to actually take down the notes and free text a note in terms of any problems, any challenges, anything that happened before the history, so they can actually get to see the next person, save it. So the next person in the call, when they're on the same case or same ticket, they can actually follow the whole trail of what happened. So this was only done, this particular functionality was introduced only after seeing the actual real-time usage of how people work and what are the kind of things that they use and follow in real life, what are the kind of breakdowns, the workarounds. So very, very useful to have the observations if you want context rich information. In focus groups, we were talking extensively about it yesterday. Marketing oriented, very much about the views, the preferences, the likes and the wishes and the wants of people. It's not about the experiences, the tasks, or the needs of people, the real needs of how they perform the task. It's about what they like, what they don't like, what they would want to do, or what they would wish to do, the wish list kind of a thing. So you've got to take it in that sense. It's not about, so perhaps the focus groups might not be right solution. For example, if you want to design something, it's not a user experience or user design, product design workshop may not be run solely on focus groups. But definitely a great marketing and market research tool, so people can try and engage in focus groups to see the concept. For example, if you have got a concept and you would like to see if the concept is, if the idea is good, or does it have any feasibility in terms of the market and the customers, then you can try and do that bit of concept testing or market testing with that. That's a good test case for focus groups. Again, need proper moderation, pretty much like your workshop. Otherwise people will just go on a complete tangent and they just talk about, I like blue color is my favorite. Oh, my daughter, she loves blue as well. My son, he doesn't like, even though he's a boy, he doesn't like blue, he likes pink, blah 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 blah, all that stuff. They just go on a completely different tangent, some of the people. So you need to bring them back, and then also perhaps you need to again understand what is it that you're trying to actually get out of this group, what is the focus of the group. So we need to put them back into the track. And also, just like workshop, some people might get too influenced by others' opinions, or some people are introverts, some are extroverts. So you need to actually have a good sense of moderation in terms of how you can engage all these different types of people of different personalities, different attitudes, and then try and get the best out of them in terms of the elicitation that you're trying to do with this group. So it helps to gather opinions and views. That's important. So it's not about the tasks, their experiences, or the actually what they do as part of the job. It's about what they like. So things like colors, visual design, shapes of things. If your product, for example, you want to look at the shapes, what colors, what shapes, what forms. So that physical factors and the forms, that kind of opinions and views, you can do focus groups for that kind of objective. But as I said, product design, actual features and development of features, design of features of a particular feature of your product, perhaps is not really that effective. Prototyping, again, very important. A lot of people do prototype because it's the next best thing to a solution, because you don't have the final solution. Again, I was given an example of the Flash-based application that we developed for a .NET application for the financial planning product. We could not get that in time. It's huge. It's a very complex thing. So we created the Flash version as a prototype, and we used it for the user testing. And then, yeah, it's very dynamic. So it's not just a wireframe or statics thing. So people can actually have a go, and they can have it's not just the look and feel, but also the interaction, the navigation, the whole experience of how the end product would look like. You can pretty much give the same thing, same effect and same experience through a prototype. So that's a very powerful way to engage the users and get the feedback, get the insights from their usage. It helps to definitely get the early feedback from users. So agile development. So what we do is we'll try and, as we discussed, fail fast. So the earlier you get the feedback from the customers and users, the better for you. So you can actually try and rectify the errors, the issues, the defects earlier. So you have got minimal rework to do on that later. So you can save a lot of time and effort and money and all that stuff. So very powerful. I quite like using prototypes. Scenarios, again, is another. This is what I would typically use in a user testing. So scenarios will tell the scenario saying that you are the CEO of this company, you've got this thing, so now you've got to take a decision about having to hive off this business unit or mergers and acquisition. Or you say that you're the owner of a small bakery, you've got this dough, you've got to take this decision about what kind of products you're making. So you're actually spinning a story. You're actually giving them a story, and then you are giving a construct of what they're going to operate in, the constraints, the challenges, and then you are letting them go and then do the tasks using this product. So again, I have used scenarios in the context of user testing. So you have a prototype, you develop it, you create some tasks, and then you spin a story around that, and then you tell the story, same story to the the test audience, to the test participants. And then you can actually get to see how each one reacts differently. Each one goes through a different route to the same feature, for example. So we've used, again, the scenario-based user testing in the prototypes for the Flash-based prototypes of the financial planning product. We used scenarios quite a lot. Very powerful. It helps you to identify exceptions, uncover things, in fact, things which you have not thought about. People would be doing all of those when they're using the product. When they're in the scenario, they'll say, okay, what could be the worst case scenario? What could the best case scenario? What could be the average scenario? But sometimes you can even uncover scenarios which you have not even thought about, those three scenarios. There could be multiple ways of doing the same thing, or, as they say, serendipity, isn't it? So you can actually discover something which even they themselves might not know. So you can try and unearth all of those, the discovery, and explore multiple ways of getting to a particular feature, or using a feature for something completely different. Using your product, for example, to a completely different one. Like, for example, they say that most of these product vendors don't know how their products would really get used by people in different ways. So even they themselves are like so zapped to see some of those, like, for example, the scissors and these kind of equipment being used for doing complex tasks, or, for example, the garden equipment being used for doing surgeries and for doing different things. I mean, there's a lot of stories out like that, where people were really taken by surprise in terms of how their products were used by different people. So it's all scenarios of usage, isn't it? So again, gives you rich context sensitive information, very helpful to come up with ideas of usage. And again, the way it is used in real life, in the practical aspects of things, would really help you to come up with different ways, different features, and different innovation ideas as well. Document analysis is pretty much what most of us start to do, right? For example, if you've got some kind of document, reference manuals, going through the documents, trying to understand what is already done, what has been done, what is not done, what is a gap, how can we fill that, all those things, right? So use completed forms, documents, reports. Uh, so you're actually trying to look at how people would actually use this product, or the features, or the manuals, the setup manuals, the user manuals, the reference guides. All of those would help actually to get an idea in terms of what the features are. There's only one flip side to this, is obviously these are all good, but the problem is sometimes, or most of the times, you create the setup manuals, this beautiful user guides and everything, but they don't get updated as much as the product gets updated. So features change. So you actually add so many features, you change the way it works, change the way it looks. You perhaps even change the flow of a particular product feature, how it you get to that. Everything changes in a span of a few months or a few years. Unfortunately, you don't give as much attention to changing the documents and things, because they're secondary. And obviously people don't attach so much importance to the documents, because they're supporting, they're not the actual product. So after about 4, 5, 6 years, when you actually see a product, you would end up with a completely different different set of features, different functionality, perhaps even different target market, different idea that it's serving. But when you look at the documents, and after that they get passed on to this, and then you say you're a new BA, for example, you got to this, you joined the company, and then the team actually gave you this whole bunch of documents, say, okay, go through this, it will give you a good idea about what this product does. You start looking at it, it makes no sense at all. It's totally different from what it was originally meant to deliver or work on initially as per the document. So you need to to make sure that you understand that, and the stakeholders need to also understand that, that kind of a gap. There's a bit of a challenge on that one. It's not really maintained and updated on a frequent basis, which is a bit of a challenge. But other things, obviously, it would help with collecting the actual data on the ground, because sometimes these documents also would be the ones that you would ask people to write up or look at. The diaries, for example, I was talking about the SPR, the special purpose records. Those would give you rich insights into how people use and what kind of habits they have, what kind of workflows they have on a day-to-day basis. So you can get more and more, again, context-rich data. That leads us to the special purpose records. So these are the ones that people would actually kind of do. So record simple data on the job by the workers, by the people who actually do the task or work themselves. So create tangible artifacts. So for example, you're a runner yourself, so athletes would typically be asked to log their food diary, log their activity diary, log their activities. So they and what kind of if they're consuming any other kind of medicines or anything, they need to actually record and log it, so that it would be used for the for seeing if there are any prohibitive substances, that the substance intake and things like that, which they would have done without knowing. So that's also possible. That's why all these diaries would really help to understand where what happened, right? What happened, what went into the person's body, even without their knowledge with the knowledge. That's a different thing. So we can get to understand what is it that they're doing as a habit, how many miles have you run today versus yesterday. So all these applications, automatic applications of tracking, the fitness applications like Strava, Fitbit, the Android and the Apple phones, they start giving that anyway, right? So it tells you how many liters of water you've taken, how many miles have you run or walked, how many footsteps, how many steps have you, the step count, and then how many floors have you actually gone up and down, depending on the stairs that you have actually taken that day. So all of these data that would that would automatically collect, but then at least that will give you kind of an idea in terms of how you're using the data to either for your own purpose or for somebody else's. Need to be used in conjunction with others to get the complete picture. It cannot be just done on its own. So you need to actually complement the data that you get from the special purpose records with other techniques. Then that would actually give you the big picture, the real complete picture in terms of how you can use this data more effectively. But this is a very powerful tool because it gives you the context rich data. Questionnaires we talked about. I'm a bit iffy about using questionnaires and surveys, not a big fan of that. Suitable for gathering limited information on people's views, very limited. You might ask 5, maximum 10 questions, I guess, and most of them should be closed-ended and not open-ended. People don't have time to write the things, so maybe 1 question out of 10 could be a open-ended. What do you feel about this, or how did it go, blah blah, give us some ideas how we can improve it, blah blah, something like that, just to keep it open. But the rest of the 9 questions out of 10 should be closed-ended, preferably multiple choice, or that radio button kind of a thing, just tick 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 tick, and then they should be able to do that. If it is designed in that way, perhaps you would be successful in getting a few responses back. Otherwise, it's so difficult to, if it is long-winding, people don't have the time to give you that. And getting the number of responses back from the people is a big challenge with this. That's the only flip side of this. Because the fact is, it is dependent on the volumes, not the value. So how many you send out in thousands and you expect at least hundreds to respond, but that also requires a lot of prodding, a lot of a lot of nudging, and then finally you might get a few responses back from the customer. So what I would suggest is, if you really are keen to do some kind of surveys or questionnaires, instead of giving something and then asking them to fill it up and give it to you, you say that I would, can you please give me a minute or 2 minutes, or it doesn't take more than that. I will ask you a question, just respond yes, no, all right, whatever, that simple thing. And then I will take on your behalf. So it's easy for you. You don't have to even do it. So that's a fairly quick. In fact, you can see a lot of these people, employed by the researching organizations who are in the shopping malls, or who are near the train stations, airports, who would ask, can I just ask you a quick question? I just had the survey. You don't have to do anything. Just tell me. I'll ask 2 questions. Just tell me. And then they'll ask those questions. And then on your behalf, sometimes it is anonymous, so they don't even ask your name. Sometimes it is, they'll ask your name or first name. So just to make it, you feel comfortable to give out the data. Sometimes it's better to keep it anonymous, so people are more free to give their ideas or their suggestions. So all those things are important when you consider questionnaires, but I would take it with a pinch of salt, because you don't have much of context-rich data coming out of it. You don't even get why a problem has come through, where it is coming, when it is coming, all those kind of the context data and the data that would help you to take a decision about that. You won't, unfortunately, get that with the questionnaire. So a bit of